Hello everyone. So my name is Abhilasha and of course I'm your favorite VRC educator. In this course we are talking about reading comprehension in the skill builder VRC. As you already know, our classes happen Tuesdays and Fridays, and today is Friday, so of course the second session of this week. Today we are going to be talking about main idea, theme, title and purpose of the passage. It's essentially moving around the same topic, that is what is the main idea of the passage. So let's not waste any more time. Let's get started and let's see what the main idea, theme, title, purpose questions are all about and how would you solve them. So let's get started. My name is Abhilasha. I've been teaching for the last 22 years. I have cracked CAT VARC section with a 99.99 percentile 9 times. I have co-authored a book called Quantitative Aptitude and Reasoning. I have trained over 1 lakh students for exams such as CAT, CLAT, GMAT, GATE, Bank PO, SSC, UPSC and so on. If you wish to connect with me, of course you can connect with me on Unacademy. That's always there. What is the agenda of today's class? Well, there are 3 things. What is the main idea? What are the different formats of the question and how you should handle them? There will also be some bonus at the end of this session. Alright, so main idea, the most important thing. Let's start learning about it. Let's not waste any time, doing this thing. So what is the main idea? Guys, all of us, and every time we're reading something, writing something, we all wonder what is the main idea. Well, the main idea is the writer's main thought. It is that idea that the writer wishes to convey through his article. Please understand that whatever a writer is writing, he wishes to convey a thought. There is a purpose to that article, right? And that purpose, that idea, that thing that he wants to convey to you is the main idea of a passage. So when you look at the main idea, when you see what this article, what a particular article is all about, you understand that this is the main idea. In other words, it's that overarching concept or theme that a writer is telling you about in a particular passage. Of course, the main idea may be sometimes stated, it may be sometimes unstated, sometimes it may be divided into several parts and may not be written in one specific region, or sometimes it is not even written in the passage. But the main idea essentially is that one soul of the passage, that one spirit of the passage, that one thing that the writer really wants to tell you. So let's understand what is the main idea, how do you understand it, what are the questions looking like, and so on. So what essentially is the main idea? Well, like I said, it is the writer's main thought, that one idea that he wants you to understand. Now, how do I understand what is the main idea? Well, again, the repeated idea, something that he tells you again and again and again throughout the passage. Well, that is essentially the main idea. So when we are looking at the main idea, guys, it is very important for us to understand that anything that the writer is telling you again and again is going to point you in the direction of the main idea, right? Because let's say I want to tell you about the nature of octopuses. Okay, one CAT article from last year. So I will talk about octopus and I will repeatedly talk about the octopus. And that is how you will understand that this is something that the writer is talking about and therefore is important towards the main idea, maybe pointing towards the main idea. So any repeated idea therefore becomes very important for us, right? I will write it here that it is very important for us. So exactly the thought that he wants to convey to the reader, and that is the main idea. That one idea that covers everything that the author wants to tell the reader. Everything. Okay, that one idea is the main idea. That overarching theme. Like I was saying, the overarching theme of the passage is the main idea. That one thing that the writer is saying to you throughout whatever he has said. That is the main idea. Now, sometimes the main idea may be written in the passage, sometimes it may not be. So, if it is written, it is called the stated main idea. If it is not written, then of course it is the unstated main idea. Well, both types of main ideas can occur in a passage, both the stated main idea and the unstated main idea. And it doesn't really matter to us, whatever is the main idea, that's the important thing. If it is written in a particular line, wonderful. If it is not written in a particular line and has to be picked up from several places, well, that's perfectly okay also. Because what is important is that did we understand what the writer was talking about? So if we have understood that, then it is perfectly okay. Sometimes the main idea is not given in one place, like I said, and it is broken up into several points. So if it is broken up into several points, we pick it up from there and we'll try and understand and solve whatever we have. How do we find the main idea? Well, there are certain things that you should keep in mind. So I put them here and we will talk about them. So main idea or theme or the central idea, purpose versus main idea, the repeated keywords, the first paragraph and the last paragraph, stated versus unstated main idea, and the title. So these are certain things that when we are finding the main idea, they should be in our mind. They should be at the forefront of our mind. So let's look at each one of these and let's try and explore each one of these and understand them. And then I'll take you forward on to this journey of identifying what the main idea is and so on. So the main idea or the theme or the central idea is essentially that one idea that the writer is talking to you about. Okay, it is, like I said, it is something that is repeated again and again. Now, when we say that it is repeated again and again, and I have given you as point 3 repeated keywords. Now, this is something that we had spoken in the last class also about the repeated keywords. And what did I say about the repeated keywords? Well, there are 3 types of keywords that you can have. Okay. So I'm just doing a very short keyword analysis. So there are 3 types of keywords that we can have. Number 1 are the nouns and pronouns. The nouns and pronouns, the ones that are repeated, point to the central characters of your essay. Okay, so who are the main characters in an essay are pointed to by the nouns or pronouns. For example, if we are talking about, let's say, the Indian economy. So the words Indian and economy will be repeated throughout the passage. And you know that these are the main characters of the passage. That means we are talking about these things, right? So the nouns and pronouns will tell you about the characters or the main players of this passage. Okay, so we spot those. That's number 1. Now, number 2, the writer will tell you the story. Now, the flow of the story happens through conjunctions, right? So, the conjunctions are also very important keywords. They tell you what the flow of the story could be. Now, sometimes the story flow could be, let's say, in the same direction. So, you have conjunctions such as and, continuing conjunctions, in the same line, as well as, with. Together with these keywords will continue an idea. Sometimes you have those contrasting conjunctions also. So in case there is a contrasting conjunction, the idea is contrasted. So now the contrasting conjunction, let's say the minute you see, I will just write these, continuing conjunctions and the contrasting conjunctions. Now the continuing conjunctions, like I said, could be and, as well, could be together, with, right, and so on. The contrasting conjunctions could be conjunctions such as but, yet, however. Now the minute you see these conjunctions, you know that there is going to be a change in the story. So if till now we were talking about something, we were talking about, let's say, how the Indian economy is doing so well. The minute you get the but, yet, or however, or any of the other contrasting conjunctions, you know that the story is going to change now. So from the first paradigm, now we are going to a paradigm which is going to be the exact opposite, or at least opposite in some way. Similarly, there are other conjunctions also. For example, conjunctions which tell you a sequence. So for example, when you see conjunctions such as first, second, third, now, next, later, right? These tell you that there is a sequence that is going on. We've tried to spot the sequence before, after, first, second. So these will tell you there is a sequence. So the conjunctions are also very important. They help you to direct the flow of thought. Okay. So let me write this, that they will tell us the flow of thought. That's the second thing. So these are the second set of keywords that we pay attention to. The third set of keywords, please forgive my writing. I know it is terrible and I know I write a little slanted. I can't write straight. So that is my problem. I've never been able to write in a straight line. So achiever's dilemma. Alright, the third type of keywords are the ones that are your adjectives and adverbs. Now, why are these keywords? Because they point to the descriptions or in the passage. That means they tell you what the writer feels about certain things, right? So these adjectives and adverbs point towards the tone of the author. What emotion does the writer have? These can be spotted by the adjectives and the adverbs, right? So when you look at the adjectives and adverbs, remember any descriptive word or phrase is an adjective if it describes a noun or a pronoun. It is an adverb if it describes another verb, an adjective or another adverb. So any of these descriptions, any descriptive word or phrase will point you towards the tone of the author. So three types of keywords we have spotted. Number one, the nouns and pronouns, which will help you identify the, I have lost my pen somewhere. Yeah, which will help you identify the characters. Number two, the conjunctions, which will help you with the flow of thought. And number three, adjectives and adverbs, which will help you with the tone of the passage. Now, please understand that all three are important in helping you identify what the main idea is. Let us say we've understood that the characters are India and economy. Now, the writer is talking about step by step how the economy has progressed. So maybe he will give you a sequential set of keywords. And then you see adjectives and adverbs which are talking about how things can be better or how things will be better. So how things will be better means the writer is being very hopeful. He is being very optimistic. His outlook is very positive towards the future. If he says how things could have been better, then he is being negative. He's saying that we did not do what we should have done, right? So he's being negative, he's being pessimistic, he's being hopeless, he's saying that somebody has fallen short on something. So these three are the main keywords that you spot in a passage. And these are the three keywords that will help you understand what the writer is saying. So when we are reading the passage, it's very important for us to understand what the nouns and pronouns are to identify the characters in a passage. Number two, the conjunctions to help you identify the flow of thought. And number three, the adjectives and adverbs to help you identify the tone of the passage. When you've got these three sorted, you will be able to spot the main idea in the passage and very easily. Okay. So therefore, I said the purpose, the keywords are very important. The keywords in a passage will help you identify what the main idea or the theme or the central idea is. Okay, let's go to number two, purpose versus main idea. I will erase this and I will continue with this. So if you wish to take a screenshot, you may. Okay. Now, next. So we've already covered the main idea and we've covered the repeated keywords. Let's come to number two and let's talk about the purpose or the main idea. Now, when we are talking of the purpose of the passage. A lot of times the question will say what is the purpose of the passage. Now you must understand, guys, that the purpose and the main idea are essentially two sides of the same coin. So what the writer wants to tell you is the purpose, is the main idea. Why does he want to tell you is the purpose, right? So they are essentially one and the same thing, only the questions are framed differently. So when the writer says, okay, what is the main idea of this passage, you will say that the main idea of the passage is to discuss the progress of the Indian economy, right? Perfect, that's the main idea. When the author says, okay, what is the purpose of this passage, or what is the purpose of the writer behind writing this passage, so you will say that the purpose of the passage behind writing this passage is to inform the reader about the progress of the Indian economy. So the main idea was the progress of the Indian economy, and the purpose was to inform the reader about the progress of the economy. So you see, they're essentially one and the same. And that is why when we discuss the main idea questions, we also understand that the purpose questions are going to be exactly the same thing. There is nothing different from purpose and main idea. It is essentially the same. The framing of the questions may be different, right? So the question in the main idea will say, okay, what is the main idea? What is it that the writer wishes to convey? But the purpose question will say, okay, why has the writer written this thing? Why has the writer written the second paragraph? Okay, what is the purpose behind writing the third paragraph? Something like this. So now you have to identify why he has written that, what is written in that passage, and why would he convey that. So the purpose is also the same thing as the main idea. So don't get scared when you look at a purpose question, and don't think that, oh my goodness, how am I going to do it? Okay, so that's number 2. Number 4, let's come to the first paragraph versus the last paragraph. Now one thing, first and the last paragraph. Well, guys, see, when we were talking about doing a preview, you remember in the last class we had discussed how to solve an RC, and I had said that we will do a preview first. We will scan the passage, the first and the last lines of all the paragraphs, and then we'll identify what the main idea is. Now, so that is something very important. In this case, when we speak of the main idea, remember that the first and the last lines are very important, as well as the first paragraph and the last paragraph. So when we are reading, we must pay a lot of attention to the first paragraph and the last paragraph, because the first paragraph kind of sets the concept for you. So it brings out what the writer really wants to tell you. What is his thought? What is his concept? What exactly does he want to, make you understand? So the first paragraph is very, very important. The last paragraph is equally important, because that is kind of summing up everything that has been mentioned in the passage. So therefore, when we are reading, not just the first and the, so when you're doing a scan, then we are looking at the first and the last lines of every paragraph. But when you actually get into reading, okay, then the first paragraph and the last paragraph of your RC become very important. So I will write it down here that when you're scanning or previewing, what we do is we read the first and last lines of all paragraphs. Okay, so what this does is it gives us a broad idea of what goes where. While as compared to when we are reading the passage, then when we read the first and the last paragraphs. Okay, the first and the last paragraphs with great emphasis. Okay, so then these become very, very important, because this is where the main idea might lie. Most of the time it lies in the first and the last paragraphs. So therefore, because generally the topic of the passage is set out in the first paragraph, and the last paragraph kinds of sums it up. If he wants to tell you something, then he will sum it up in the last paragraph. So the first and the last paragraphs therefore are very important for us. So while you're reading, don't just read everything, but pay a lot of attention to the first and the last lines of all paragraphs, as well as the first and the last paragraphs themselves. These are going to be very important. Number 5. Let's come to that also. What is the stated or the unstated main idea? Well, see, the main idea, let's understand, is that thought that the writer wants to convey to you. Now, sometimes he will say it out aloud in the passage, and sometimes he may not say it out aloud also in the passage. So, you may have what is called the stated main idea, you may have what is called the unstated main idea. Well, that's perfectly all right. When you read a passage, and let us say there are 3 things that the writer is talking to you about, point 1, point 2, and point 3. And all of these points point towards a certain concept. Okay. Now, if that concept is mentioned in the passage, then that is the stated main idea. If that concept is not mentioned in the passage, then it is the unstated main idea. So, for us to understand whether the idea is stated or unstated, let us read the passage. Let us understand all the important things that he wants to tell you. So, essentially the topic sentences of all the paragraphs. Let us spot those and let us put it together. Whatever that put together sentence is going to be, that's going to be your main idea. If it is stated somewhere in the passage in a line, then that is your stated main idea. If it is not mentioned, then it is your unstated main idea. All right. So I hope you've understood the concept of the stated versus the unstated main idea. It may be written, it may not be written. Again, that's not very important. What you need to do is you need to spot what he's saying, and that's it. Okay. Now let's come to the last idea, that is the title. Now, how is a title question different from the main idea or the purpose question? Well, please understand that the title is also very closely connected to the main idea. What is it that the writer is wishing to convey in the passage? That is the main idea. I will erase all of this. I'll discuss the next portion. So, the writer wants to tell you the main idea. He is conveying a thought. Now, that thought itself is the purpose also. Because why has he written it? To convey the main idea. So, the purpose behind the writing is to identify what the main idea is. And the title is exactly a statement of the main idea. So the title and the main idea essentially are the same thing. So if you look for the main idea, you've also got the title. So the main idea, please understand, can be used as the title also. So a lot of times the main idea is also used as a title. Now, the title of a passage can be of 2 types, okay? It can be a literal title, that means it can take the words from the main idea directly, or it could be a metaphorical title also. Okay, it could be a metaphor also, or what you call an analogy. Okay, so there could be some story that they have some parallel they have drawn from the main idea of the passage to some statement, to some saying, to some phrase somewhere, and they could have made the title that way. So a lot of times the titles are also metaphorical or analogies. Now in that case, what you need to do is you need to understand what the main idea is. Okay, understand what the main idea is, and then from the main idea draw a parallel to the analogy or to the metaphor, and that will give you what the correct metaphorical title could be. So metaphorical titles are also very visible, and a lot of times you will find them. So your task now is to spot what that metaphorical title is and then take it forward from there. So that is how you solve the title question. So title questions, again, very close to the main idea, but sometimes maybe the metaphorical title. So look for the story, read the main idea, see what is the parallel between the metaphor given and the main idea, and then whichever one is parallel, that one becomes your correct answer. So title, remember, you will keep it short and sweet. I will write it down here. Keep it short and sweet. The title must always be short and sweet. It must cover all the keywords, right? All the keywords. That means all 3 categories. the noun pronoun, the conjunction, as well as the tone. So all of those have to be covered in the passage. So remember, it must be, you must keep it short and sweet, and you must cover all the keywords of the main idea in the title also. Once you have done that, you are very close to your title. So the one that will match up, that's going to be the correct title. So keep these things in mind when you're solving the main idea questions. These are the ones that will help you identify the correct answer. Alright, here's a small passage that I have picked up, and we will try and spot the main idea. Now please understand, if you wish to read it in and take a bit of time, pause the video here. Okay, take your time and read it, and then carry on with the question. So please pause the video here and watch it and then take it forward. I will read the passage along with you, so we do have a minute of reading. So let's do this. European zoos of the late 19th and early 20th centuries incorporated the visual cultures of their animals' native homes into ornate buildings. So from where they had got the animals, the visual signs of those countries, the symbols of those countries were put into these very fancied, well-designed buildings, and the animals were kept there, reflections of their nation's colonial aspirations. The Berlin Zoo's ostrich house resembled an Egyptian temple with large columns flanking the entrance and scenes of ostrich hunts decorating the exterior. So in the Berlin Zoo, the place where they keep the ostriches, it was like an Egyptian temple, and very fancy ostrich hunt scenes were decorating the exterior. Berlin's elephant enclosure was built in the spirit of a Hindu temple. The home for its giraffes adopted an Islamic cultural style. Zoos in Cologne, Lisbon, Antwerp, and Budapest, among others, created similar exhibits. These zoos were no home for subtlety. They were not subtle. The animals they contained were exotic to most visitors. So the animals that they had were very strange, very unusual. The buildings that did the containing, so the enclosures that you kept the animals, these exotic animals in, reinforced the sensation. So the animals were exotic. The buildings that were housing these animals were even more, fancy. So now if you read this passage, the first line of the passage says that European zoos of the late 19th and early 20th century incorporated the visual culture of the animals' native homes into ornate buildings. And this exactly is also repeated in the last line. The animals that they contained, the zoos, were very exotic. They came from strange lands, and the buildings that were housing the animals kind of reinforced or uh, drove home the point that the animals were exotic. Okay, so we are talking of two things. One, animals are exotic, okay, in the zoo, and the buildings were even more exotic, right? And they were built that way to kind of reinforce this idea that we are exotic. Yes, this is something that these animals are exotic, and look, when you come here, you're going to be wowed by the buildings as well as the animals. So that is what this passage is all about. Now let us look at the question and see if we can spot the main idea. Here, which of the following best states the main idea of the paragraph? Again, I'll ask you to take a pause, look at the options, read them, take your time, identify your answer, and then carry on. So buildings in the, pause. I will write the pause here so you know that you were supposed to pause. Okay. Now buildings in the late 19th and early 20th century European zoos emphasize the strange origins of the animals that were kept there. Many buildings in the late 19th and 20th century European zoos were built like Egyptian temples. European zoos in the late 19th and early 20th century sought to bring out hidden emotions in their visitors. And during the 19th and early 20th centuries, most of the animals in the zoos came from abroad. Well, because we are talking of the buildings emphasizing, you remember we spoke about that the buildings brought out the strangeness of the animals also. So were we really talking about just the fact that animals came from abroad? Not really. So I'll eliminate D. They sought to bring out hidden emotions. But what kind of emotions? Were they trying to bring out the pathos in the visitors? No. We did not expect the visitors to feel sympathetic towards these poor animals. We wanted them to be wowed by them. Okay, so not C also. Many buildings were built like Egyptian temples. Now this is a distortion. We've only spoken of one building that was built like an Egyptian temple. So this is what we call a distortion. That means there is some difference in the passage and here. So this cannot be the correct answer. So the best answer, guys, should be A, that the buildings in the late 19th and early 20th European zoos emphasize the strange origins, the bizarreness of the animals that were kept there. So best answer for us will be A, that is exactly stating the main idea. If we go back to the passage C, the zoo animals were exotic, the buildings were even more exotic. Exactly what we have said here also. So the correct main idea will be talking about buildings. They talked about the animals and they talked about the strangeness of the origin or the exoticness of the origins of the animals. Right? See, all the three characters were picked up. Buildings, animals and the strangeness. Correct? That they emphasize these, the buildings were made to emphasize the animals, wonderfully mentioned here also. So we have covered, and the fact that it was strange, so the tone is also continued here. So we have managed to keep our three things in line: the character, the flow of thought, as well as the tone of the passage, right? All three are covered. So all three pay attention to, and then you've got the main idea conquered. Okay, I hope you got that. Let's go to the next idea. All right, so what does a main idea question look like? So let's take a look. This is what a main idea question will look like. So the question can read like any of these. The main idea of the passage is: which of the following best describes the organization of the passage? The passage as a whole can best be characterized as which of the following? The title of the passage is, the author's primary purpose in this passage is, the passage is mainly concerned with, the author's discussion of something is primarily intended to explain, which of the following most completely and accurately describes the passage. So each of these guys is talking about the main idea of the passage. So if you look at this first question, the main idea of the passage, directly asking you, kya hai, what is the main idea? The second one says, which of the following best describes the organization of the passage as a whole? So how are you organizing the passage? How have you laid out the passage? So what I was talking about in the flow of thought, this is what the passage is talking about. This question is talking about. So what is the flow of thought? What is the first paragraph talking about? Okay. What is the second paragraph talking about? What is the third paragraph talking about? So you pick the ideas, the main idea of the first one, the main idea of the second one, the main idea of the third one, and you've got it covered. Now there is another question type that is occurring in CAT these days, and that again is testing you on the main idea also. And that question is, which of the keywords, which of the following options has the correct keywords to the passage? So they're actually asking you for the keywords of the passage directly. So when we do the writing, when we make our notes at the end of the passage or towards the end of the paragraph, and we write down A, B, C are the keywords of first paragraph, P, Q, R are the keywords for the second paragraph, S, T, U are the keywords to the third paragraph, then when the question asks you to identify the keywords of the paragraph, then these are the keywords that you need to spot. So that question again becomes very simple for us to solve, because while we were reading the passage, we've already spotted the keywords that the writer is talking about this, this and this. So you can solve that question very, very easily too by just doing this exercise, by just reading, scanning very well. So that again is a question type that you can find. So what are the keywords of the passage? I will write this question also. Okay, what are the keywords of the passage? So that also is a question that you will find. Okay. Now the passage as a whole can be characterized as which of the following? So what is the passage doing? Is it an essay? Okay. Is it a comparison of two things? Is it an expository note article? Is it a descriptive article? What is it doing? So what is the purpose of the author, right? Again, very close to what the purpose of the author is. Why is he saying whatever he saying? Now the title you already understand. So what is the title of the passage? Again, what is the primary purpose? Why has he written it? What is it that he wants to convey? So we understand. The passage is mainly concerned with conveying something, describing something, discussing something, analyzing something. Again, the purpose of the passage. The author's discussion of something is primarily intended to explain. So let us say he talks about writings of black poets. So why has he talked about the writings of black poets in this article? So he is probably wanting to explain the relevance of black poetry in the modern spectrum of poetry, something like that. So he discusses something. Why does he discuss that? So again, purpose of the passage, purpose of something. Which of the following most completely and accurately describes the passage? So again, what is it that the writer is doing? So these are some of the question types that you will find within the passage. And these are all very important for us, but we should be able to understand that each of these questions is a reflection of the main idea. So if you have read the passage well, if you've understood it well, then the main idea will not be difficult for you at all. You will be able to spot the main idea at the snap of a finger and you're sorted with that. Okay, so I hope you've understood this. Alright, so let us learn how to solve the main idea question. So of course, how do you solve the main idea question? Let's find out. So today we are just focusing on the main idea questions and the variations. I've already told you what the different variations can be for the main idea question. So let's take a look at how to solve. Now when you're solving the main idea questions, what is it that you're going to be doing? So there, of course, there are certain things that we need to keep in mind. So let us pay attention to what all we'll be keeping in mind. So when you're solving a main idea question, these are the 4 things that we will do. Number 1, we will attack the passage. Oh my God, I'll take a gun and I'll shoot the person. No, we'll not do that. Okay, well, we'll understand that. Number 2, we'll paraphrase the question as well as the options also. We'll in our own mind predict the answer. We'll think, okay, what should the right answer be? Then we'll eliminate the wrong answers. We'll do too narrow, too broad, distortion, extreme language, new information, shell option. There are so many ways you can eliminate an answer. So we will talk about each one of those too. But let's come to the first idea and how to attack the passage. That's the first thing we will learn. So when we talk about solving the main idea questions, let's take it one by one. So number 1, you have to attack the passage. Like I said, don't expect to go and fight a war. But what do I mean by attacking the passage? Remember when we were talking about scanning our RCs and all of that, we said very clearly that it is very important to be active readers. So when you are reading, be an active reader. That's very important. When you start reading, activate your mind. So now this is why the scanning or the preview becomes very important. When you scan the article, when you scan something, then you become a more active reader. So you have actually activated your mind. Once you have activated your mind, you become more conscious of what you need to read, how you're going to be reading, what is it that the writer is talking about. So an activated mind will lead to more involved reading. So involved reading will cause what? It will make you understand the passage better. It will help you see what the flow of thought is. It will help you see what the writer is saying. what is it that he's bringing out as examples, what is it that he's bringing out as, conjunctions, this, that. You will be able to become more involved in the passage. So attack the passage, be active. That's the first thing you should do. Number two, paraphrase the question and explain it to yourself that this is what the writer is asking me to do. I've already explained the various types of questions that you could find. So all of those types of questions, pay attention and activate your mind and paraphrase the question along with the options. Please also paraphrase the options so you understand what it is being said. What I mean by paraphrasing is to say it in simple terms. Right? So explain the passage to yourself, explain the question to yourself, explain the options to yourself also, so you know what the writer is saying. Then once you've explained the question to yourself, then it becomes easier for you to predict, think of the answer. Well, this is what the writer has said in the passage, so probably this is what the answer is going to be. So in your own mind, you know what the answer should be. Then you go to the options and you start eliminating the wrong answers. So what are the wrong answers? You will start taking a look at, hey, this is a wrong answer, this is a wrong answer, this is a wrong answer. And how do we eliminate the wrong answers, or what is the process of elimination? The POE, or the process of elimination, is simple. Let me write that here. The process of elimination. We will talk about this at greater length at other times also, what is the process of elimination. But for now, let's understand options that are too narrow. So the passage is talking about the Indian economy and the option is talking about the Indian economy in 2021-22. Okay, too narrow. Okay, too broad. The passage is talking about the Indian economy. The option is talking about Indian economy since the last 200 years, or maybe it is talking about world economy. Again, too broad. Okay. Distortion. I mean, in one of the options that we'd seen the distortion, that some word is something from the passage is taken, but a little change is made to it. So therefore, it is not the same as the passage, because the words are similar, you feel that it is the right answer. So little changes are made, and these changes are done to confuse you or to obfuscate the thought. So they end up obfuscating the thought, and you are like, oh, I have read this in the passage, I have read it somewhere. Sometimes what they do is, let's say the passage is giving you a cause effect option, right? So what they will do is they'll switch the cause effect. So the effect will become the cause and the cause will become the effect. And therefore, again, the option is incorrect. There is a distortion. Sometimes extreme language, words such as all, always, never, okay, will, must. Okay, these words are extreme options. So let us say the passage says South America will never be able to get into the economic rat race. And then the option says, well, South America may get into the economic rat race. But because the statement has already said will never do it, then a may is not a possibility, right? So extreme language you have to be very careful of. Let's say the passage had said that South America may get into the economic rat race, and the option says that South America will get into the economic rat race. Again, I know the will is too strong, it is too extreme, and therefore it cannot be the right answer. So when we are doing our questions, we have to be very careful of extreme language also. So be very cautious. New and unsupported information. Sometimes one of the options will bring in some extra information that will have nothing to do what with the passage is saying. So the new information, or the information that has no base in the passage, please eliminate that right away. That new information or the unsupported information is very irrelevant. And then the shell option. What is a shell option? A shell option is a look-alike. Okay. What do I mean by a look-alike? It uses the same words, it uses the same keywords, it uses the same statement from the passage, but it is not the right answer. So it looks very close to the right answer. It looks very close to the main idea. You get the feeling when you read this that yes, this is going to be the main idea. But it's not, because it's actually very similar but not the right answer. So the shell option is very important here too. Now, I will give you one more thing. When we were talking of conjunctions, remember a conjunction like and is very important. What happens is in most of the options, when they give you some options, they give you two thoughts. So this is point 1 and this is point 2. Now when we were talking of the new or unsupported information, this is something that you have to pay attention to. Generally what happens is that point 1 will be something that's mentioned in the passage and point 2 will be something that's not mentioned in the passage. But what we do is our mind tells us that because point 1 is already mentioned, so point 2 must also be mentioned. And we mark this as the right answer. But this is not the right answer. So remember, when they give you an option and there are two pieces of information given in that, please verify both of them, because one of them may just be a new information and that new information is not given in the passage. So any new or unsupported information, please be very careful with that. Careful, careful, careful. Okay, you have to be aware that this might be a trick. When we make options, remember, we are trying to trap you, and these are all possible trap options. Okay, all different types of traps that are there. So you have to be, as very smart people, you have to be careful of the traps. Like I told you, the cause and effect are switched. So a lot of times the passage has a causal relationship and cause is given and then the effect is given, and in the options the effect is treated as the cause and the cause is treated as the effect, and that is something that is 100% incorrect option. So you have to be careful of these distortions, these little changes, these incorrect options, something that is new or unsupported, it's out of scope. Be aware of the traps and then try and solve your question. Okay. So I hope you've understood how we are solving the main idea. So you attack the passage, get into it, understand the question, understand the passage, look for the keywords. I've already told you how to look for the keywords. Look for the keywords, the nouns, the adjectives, the adverbs, the conjunctions, everything. Look for all of them very carefully. Attack the passage end to end. Explain it to yourself. Do the mapping. When we do the mapping of the paragraphs, that's very important. That is what will help you identify the main idea. Then paraphrase, predict, and then eliminate, and you will have your right answer. Okay. All right. Let's now get to solving a passage. Here is a very small 2-page paragraph. We will read this and we will try and understand what the writer is saying and take it forward from there. Okay. Here you go. So in ancient times, again, like I say every time, you may pause the passage and take your own time to read it. Okay. I will read it as I go along, but of course you take your own time and read it. Okay. You can also take a screenshot if you wish to. In ancient times, people tried to explain the world around them based on what they saw. So people, whatever they saw, they said that this is what the world is. So people in ancient times saw that the sun came up from one side of the earth, moved across the sky and went down on the other side. So based on this observation, they believed that the earth is static and the sun travels around the earth. Going directly from observation to conclusion is called non-scientific thinking. So when we observe something and we conclude something, this is non-scientific thinking, right? Here is an example of non-scientific thinking. So non-scientific thinking is equal to going from observation to conclusion. This is what the first paragraph talks about. The second paragraph now gives you an example of non-scientific thinking. Maybe you had a sick stomach and ate a candy bar. An hour later, you observed that you felt much better. So you will conclude, oh, it was the candy bar that made me feel better. Oh, I don't have the stomach ache anymore. I'm feeling so much better. But there are other possible explanations for the observation. Now pay attention to the but. The but says, well, this is not really true. Okay. See, the but says there is going to be a change of tone, right? A tone change happens. So there are other reasons that could have caused this you feel better. Maybe you had taken some medicine an hour earlier and it took a while to work. Maybe enough time had passed and you would have felt better without eating the candy bar. So non-scientific thinking happens all the time. So the second idea, in the first paragraph we said non-scientific thinking is observation to conclusion. In the second paragraph we say non-scientific thinking happens all the time. Okay, all the time. We are not really thinking seriously. Then we come to the next paragraph. The scientific method is a way of thinking that helps you to avoid drawing incorrect conclusion. Oh, so now we have a scientific method also, and we start talking about that. So the scientific method, okay, scientific thinking method. So it avoids incorrect conclusions. So let me write that. Avoids incorrect conclusions. Okay. It helps you to avoid non-scientific thinking. It reminds you to treat your first conclusion as one of several possible conclusions. It reminds you to gather evidence to support your conclusion. So scientific thinking tells you that your first conclusion is a possibility. We need evidence to support that conclusion. Then the next paragraph says the 5 steps in the scientific method begin by questioning and observation and end with a conclusion that is based on evidence. So here that means in the scientific method, scientific thinking method, there are 5 steps. Okay, beautiful. Now we are talking of 5 steps. You understand? Step 1. So I know that now these are going to be the steps. So step 1 is to ask a question about your observation, such as what makes a sick stomach feel better. Step 2 is to state a possible answer to a question or a hypothesis. See, now we are going stepwise. Step 3 is to test the hypothesis. This can be done in many ways. You could wait until you have a sick stomach again, eat a candy bar and see what happens. You could ask a lot of people if eating a candy bar has ever made the sick stomach feel better. Figuring out how to test a hypothesis is what makes science challenging. Step 4 is to think about the finding. Think about what happened when you tested the hypothesis. So you're trying to, reason it out. Step 5 is to draw a conclusion. So you conclude, hey, this is what I have done. So the STM is of 5 steps. You start by question, hypothesis, then testing the hypothesis, thinking about it, and then drawing a conclusion. And that's the passage. So if you look at it, the passage, and I will write the 4th paragraph here again. So para 4 talks about the 5 steps of STM, scientific thinking method. And this is what your passage is all about. Guys, I hope you've understood. So see, we have drawn a map of the passage based on what we have read. Okay. So non-scientific thinking is from observation to conclusion. Non-scientific thinking is you're thinking all the time. Scientific thinking method is a method of avoiding incorrect conclusions. And then there are 5 steps of the scientific thinking method. Okay. So it helps you to avoid the non-scientific conclusion and get into the scientific way of thinking. So what are we talking about? We are talking about scientific thinking and the difference between non-scientific and scientific thinking, right? So that's what this passage is all about. I hope you've understood this. Now, we have made notes. Take a look. I have made the notes for you. So observation to conclusion is non-scientific thinking. 2 examples of non-scientific thinking and that it happens all the time. 3, that scientific way of thinking is the correct, will lead you to the correct conclusion. And 4, the 5 steps in the scientific method of thinking. So this is the step by step or whatever the paragraphs are talking about. So we have made our notes very, very beautifully. Okay. All right. Now what is the writer thinking about? So let's take a minute. Is he talking about, let's read the options. Again, this is where you can pause your video and take a minute, read the options in your own mind, think of what the right answer is going to be, and then come back and play the video and check if the option is right. So non-scientific thinking is going directly from observation to conclusion. Okay. A way of thinking that helps you to avoid drawing incorrect conclusions is the scientific method. And non-scientific thinking happens all the time. Okay, what is the writer talking about? Now, please understand, what does this question mean? It means that what is the main idea of the passage? Please understand, what the writer is talking about does not mean a listing of the facts of the passage. It is not saying, oh, what all has he talked about. When you say what is the writer talking about, you're talking about the main idea, the central idea of the passage or the theme of the passage. We've understood this, right? The questions are framed like this. So what is the theme of the passage here? Let's take a look. So non-scientific thinking is going directly from observation to conclusion. Okay, well, yes, we were talking about that. But was this passage really about non-scientific thinking only? So no. A way of thinking that helps you to avoid drawing incorrect conclusions is the scientific method. Okay, so we were talking about what is non-scientific thinking, and then we spoke about what is the scientific method in detail. Okay, and then the third one says non-scientific thinking happens all the time. So if you remember, para 2 just spoke about non-scientific thinking happening all the time. So this is very narrow in scope. We are talking of just one of the things that happen in the passage. So therefore C should not be the right answer. Again, para 1 is where we said non-scientific thinking is going directly from observation to conclusion. So again, something that is very narrow in concept. So eliminate. Okay, very narrow. So again we will eliminate. So we come to the right answer, which is that what was this passage talking about? It was talking about the scientific method of thinking. And what is the scientific method of thinking? A way of thinking that helps you to avoid drawing incorrect conclusions about the passage or about whatever you're thinking. So the correct answer here will be B. Now again, we will talk about the three things. Characters. What were the characters? There were two characters here. The scientific thinking method and what is non-scientific thinking, which was drawing to the scientific thinking, right? So non-scientific thinking, number one. Number two, what was the flow of thought? The flow of thought went from what is NST, then eliminating NST. We said, oh, this is not useful, and then saying that the scientific thinking method is what is required. So that was the flow of thought. And the tone of the thought was that the scientific thinking method is, they had just described it. So it was a very factual kind of a tone, right? Factual and positive towards STM, right? So that was what. So now if you look at this, a way of thinking that helps you to avoid drawing incorrect conclusion or not doing non-scientific thinking is the scientific method. Very well. We have spoken about the character, which is the scientific method. And because we are saying it is helping you avoid drawing incorrect conclusions, so we are now positive in tone also. So everything is covered here. So therefore B is the best possible answer for us. Alright. There is another question from the same passage. What is the purpose of writer in writing this passage? Same question. Huh? So from main idea to purpose, same thing. To differentiate between the scientific and non-scientific way of thinking, to endorse the scientific way of thinking, or to castigate the non-scientific thinkers. Now, when you are looking at the purpose question, the first two words are very important. To differentiate, to endorse, to castigate. Now pay attention. Was he trying to differentiate between the two ways of thinking? He was not. He just said that the non-scientific way is not good, the scientific way is good, right? Was he trying to castigate just the non-scientific thinkers? Was that his goal? No. So he was not castigating. So what was he doing? He was telling you that the scientific way of thinking is the way of thought. So he was in a way asking you to accept the scientific way of thinking or endorsing it, correct? So therefore the best answer here will be B. To endorse means to support, okay, to persuade the reader. Now if you read this article, it is mostly persuasive in nature, right? Why is it persuasive in nature? Because it is trying to convince you that the scientific way of thinking or STM is the right way. ठीक? Convince you that STM is the right way and therefore very persuasive in nature. Okay. Alright, let's look at the next question. So see, B is the correct answer. But what is the title of this passage? One more question in the same family. Like I said, the purpose, main idea and title are exactly the same. So take a look. Scientific thinking for correct conclusion, the non-scientific thinker, or 5 steps of scientific thinking. Which of these is going to be the correct passage? Again, think. What are the characters? Scientific thinking. Correct. What was the thought? Tone positive. We moved from non-scientific thinking to scientific thinking and said that is what we need to do. So clearly B cannot be the right answer because it is talking of the non-scientific thinker. Clearly C cannot be the right answer also. Again, please pause these videos and watch. Okay. C cannot be the right answer because the 5 steps of scientific thinking, but then we missed out on everything else. This was too narrow in scope, right? So again, too narrow in scope only came from para 4, therefore cannot be the right answer. So of course, the correct answer is scientific thinking for correct conclusions. If you want correct conclusions, you must go for scientific thinking. And that's what this passage should be, or that's what the title should be here. Okay, I hope you got that. All right. Okay guys, so I hope you've been able to understand main idea, title, purpose, and all of these types of questions. If you have any thoughts about this topic, if you have any questions, please feel free to put them down in the comments or connect with me on Telegram or on Unacademy community, whichever way. I am available everywhere very, very easily. Okay. Quick round of announcements. Congratulations to our CAT 2022 toppers. Start your CAT journey today. Here is a list of all our toppers. Lovely to have these people on board. The Zero to Zenith batch started on the 5th of January. The code is AbhiCat Live. Wonderful array of teachers here. I am also going to be teaching in this batch. So join away right now. The Zero to Zenith batch has many USPs, so you can get one subscription for access to all batches, structured courses, 25,000 plus practice questions, 100 plus mock tests, in-class doubt solving, educator curated notes and study material, mentorship from CAT experts and IIM graduates. Do join the Zero to Zenith batch if you are starting your CAT preparation right now. And today is the last day for this 23 Dream Big for 23 offer, where you can get 23% off on all our Unacademy subscription. This offer is ending on 6th of Jan, so please take advantage of it and buy our subscription using the code AbhiCatLive. The perfect score batch will be perfect for repeaters. Again, a huge array of educators. I'm missing in this. Well, that's how it is. 16th of January, we begin with this batch. Beautiful batch with, all our educators. Again, you can subscribe even today for this batch and take advantage of the Dream 23 offer. AbhiCat Live is the code. 75 plus 99 percentilers, 100 plus 98 percentilers, launching the perfect score batch. The complete syllabus completion will be by May 2023, and then 6 months of extensive revision and practice will happen along with all our USPs also. If you are preparing for the GDPI, then the last mile is happening with the GDPI offering, starts on the 10th of January. The Unacademy subscriptions are live. You have the Plus subscription, you have the Iconic subscription. If you want the basics no frill subscription, then go for Plus. If you want the frills of the physical notes, the GDPI, one-to-one live mentorship, live doubts, test analysis, expert guidance and Discord, then you need to go for the Iconic subscription. What's new? Well, I am doing a lot of things that are new. Right now we are doing our RCs. So in the Plus classes, do join in for RCs straight away. We are doing a lot of things on RCs. On the 99 Percentile Club, I am doing reading comprehension 9 p.m. Tuesdays and Fridays. This is the course. And on Let's Crack Verbal, the Hindu Aeon editorial reading comprehension 10 a.m. Mondays, Wednesdays and Fridays. These are all free sessions. You are welcome to join. Another set of free sessions that are happening Mondays, Wednesdays and Fridays at 5 p.m. are happening on the app, the special classes. This is also very, very useful for all our students. So do join in. For the Plus classes, of course, you need to subscribe today, guys. This is where you get the meat of the classes. So do join in. If you haven't yet connected with me on Telegram, use MBA CAT 23 to join in. Or you can connect with me on any social media. On Unacademy, of course, Abhilasha underscore S is my Unacademy handle. Find me by my name, that's Abhilasha Swaroop. And my referral code is AbhiCatLive, which you can use to subscribe to Unacademy. Thank you so much for joining in and for being such a lovely audience.